venom proteins of animals around the world to create spike proteins. They call spike proteins, which are really just venom proteins. All venoms are proteins. I had no idea that biological weapons labs around the world for the last at least 70 years have been synthetically manufacturing venoms all around the world and then turning them into drugs, turning them into vaccines, turning them into insecticides, turning them into cosmetics, turning them into viral pandemics, if you want to call it that. I mean, if you really want to just get down to it, the COVID narrative, I have to tell you, for the last year and a half, I got tired of talking about it. It's like, we need to get beyond this thing. But if we don't learn from the history of what we just experienced as a worldwide experiment on all of us, you're not going to be able to be protected in the next one. And you're going to be more scared, more confused for even the next one. And you will fall for their coercion, their bullying, and their fear-mongering. So what it is that's just very important to realize is the vaccine was the entire agenda. How do we get the majority of the world to sign up for a vaccine? Well, what's the problem with that? Well, the problem with that is the vaccines for COVID, not a single one of them are being designed based on the virus they're calling SARS-CoV-2. There is no SARS-CoV-2 virus in any of the vaccines. You guys know that? There's no virus code in any of these actual vaccines. Zero. The only thing they are vaccinating 5 billion people now around the world for COVID in these vaccines is a spike protein that is on the outside of a virus, supposedly. There's no SARS-CoV-2 in the Johnson & Johnson shot, Novavax, AstraZeneca. There's no virus. Spike proteins were identified in April of 2020 by geneticists. The spike proteins of SARS-CoV-2 were identified to be 2 neurotoxic venoms from 2 snakes, the king cobra and the crate snake. Well, how does not letting this narrative go prepare you and protect you in the future? Did you know that the word virus in Latin means venom? Historically has always meant venom, has always been defined as venom. So now when you look at every virus in the future, bird flu virus, polio virus, Marburg virus, it doesn't matter. These are all going to be venom-based weapons, biological weapons they have synthetically manufactured around the world. Influenza virus, these are all venoms. I just didn't know this is what they were using and utilizing. What you also don't know, all of you around the world, is how they're creating these pandemics. You all are being lied to and being told it's a respiratory virus. No, it isn't. It could be respiratory and you could be inhaling it, but that's not how you got COVID. COVID was never a respiratory disease. It was always a neurological disease, and this was known since April of 2020, published over and over and over, that these neurotoxic venomous spike proteins cross the blood-brain barrier and hit the central nervous system's brainstem to cause paralysis of your diaphragm and your heart, which creates a mammal to become hypoxic, which is why now, for the first time ever, all of you are told to take a pulse oximeter and put it on your finger and measure your oxygen load. Venoms of venomous creatures do that. They paralyze their prey to death. But they didn't give you enough of it. They just gave you some of it to create a cough, fever, chills, low oxygen levels. That's what they needed to create to scare the crap out of you to sign up for their future vaccine agenda, which would allow them to inject you with more concentrated spike proteins, which are venom proteins, directly into your body to create the most harm, disease, and death. The whole agenda was the vaccines. And this is what I knew when I read this remdesivir memo from Anthony Fauci. I already knew this. How did I know it? Because history was repeating itself. Do you know how many times I saw in the 90s and early 2000s talking about swine flu, bird flu, SARS-CoV-1? Do you remember these pandemics they said that were coming? That never came, but they were developing vaccines as they were putting this propaganda into the media. You just need to know this is what they're always doing. They're creating fear, creating anxiety and panic to sell you a vaccine savior. So as soon as I saw what they were doing with this drug called remdesivir, from May of 2020, I went into the media, hired a publicist, sitting at my dining room table in the kitchen, and needed to make sure everybody knew what was in those research studies about that drug, because the acute kidney failure was not related to the virus. It was related to the drug they were using behind closed doors called remdesivir to cause death and harm. That they could then take those numbers and then scare the crap out of you that people are dying from a virus. We need to protect all of you. Please get your vaccines. And then even more disgustingly, in my opinion, for the first time ever, you want to talk about how gullible humans are? We have had scientific and medical knowledge that there is no such thing as asymptomatic spreading. And oh my God, they convinced the whole world, the majority of people around the world, all of a sudden in less than a year, you got to listen to a narrative like this. Grandma and grandpa's at home. Do not hug your grandchildren. Even if they're not sick, they are super spreaders. They are asymptomatic spreaders of the virus. You make sure your grandchildren get vaccinated before you're around them. Now your grandchildren are a threat. Those people that aren't even coughing up droplets, sneezing, runny noses, spreading boogers, they're not actually transmitting anything. But for the first time ever in history, they were able to take a narrative, make something up, and then get a whole bunch of naive, gullible people to believe it. We need to let that go. We know that's not true, and that's not how infections are spread. But I will tell you how they're doing it. It's been published since 2006. They know how to do this. Every aspect of COVID-19, spreading it worldwide to make people sick. All they had to do was spread spike proteins all over the world. Spike proteins are venom-based proteins synthetically made in biological weapon labs all around the world. This is not something I made up. It is what they've been doing and what they've been publishing. And do you know that all venoms are water-soluble? All of them. Did you know they come in a lyophilized, freeze-dried, powdered form? Just like fluoride that's dropped into your water that you drink every day. Just like chlorine that's dropped into your water every day. And if you don't know this, there's a paper written in 2006 called Water and Terrorism. And it goes over every single industrialized nation's weaknesses in their water systems to create pandemics, including what biological agents can be added to the water systems to create pandemics, not a joke, and it lists a table of everything from anthrax to venoms of snakes being added to our water, to venoms of marine shell creatures in the ocean to be put in your water systems, and it even discloses what the chlorine levels need to be dropped to allow the venoms to actually be carried to people to ingest in those cities they're targeting. And then it also tells you what level of chlorine to increase it to make it disappear. They know how to do this. They have been doing this for decades. You just had no idea. I had no idea either. But unfortunately, this is a massive, massive deceit, lie, and you might as well be ready for it. As I have. Be ready.
That's why the topic is, it's really an attack on humanity. And so when people are listening to everything that you're saying, I know people start getting scared. Okay, and then there were a number of doctors before who will say that we can never, there's no way that we can recover from this. But one thing that I like when you say those is that you always find something hopeful, or not just not deceiving people. That's not the word I want. But when people hear all these threats in their system, like as if it's a doomsday, then the other doctors will say, no, you cannot get rid of your spike protein. There's nothing that we can do. Then when I hear from Dr. Bryan Ardis, yes, there's something that we can do.
He's a hero.
That's what I wanted you to, again, share to our audience, because knowing that you were critical enough to look at research and use your intuition, that tells me that way before 2020, you have been, you know the secret of really protecting yourself health-wise and your family. So is it really true that we can do something about it?
Yes, this is very, very true. So for me, it was...
And then it goes on to say they didn't want to panic people. I mean, he is half the answer, but I've got the spiritual answer. But how? The spiritual answer, like it's they're only demons. They're not. It just frustrates me. Frustrates the Not as much now, because I did feel I was not condemned. What's the word? I did think, well, this thing's going to kill me. I now know that it's not going to kill me. So it's like I can't even see how. I think all the timing, like everyone's going to be in their homes by that time. Anyway, I'm going to try and